How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you. Nice to see you. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. How are you feeling putting this thing out?
Um, I feel so excited for people to get to hear it and hear it in its entirety and hear it on vinyl and hear it driving in their cars and all that stuff the way it was kind of meant to be heard.
Are you going to be able to celebrate it all even though you can't go anywhere?
Um, yeah, I think after a little promo tomorrow, I'll have a glass of champagne or something.
What does that feel like when you put a record out?
Um, Well, I think it feels exciting. It feels vulnerable. Um, it feels to me in a certain way, putting a record out feels like, okay, whew, I can go work on something. I can go work on the next record. Like, okay, it's with the people it's supposed to be with. Now I can just now I can hide and make the next thing.
I think to a lot of people, people see records as the beginning of something. Like, oh, then that record came out, and that's the beginning of the, say, the Daddy's Home era of St. Vincent.
Yeah.
But what people don't always necessarily understand is that's the end of that era for you. You know what I mean?
I mean, the way that and hopefully I'll get to play shows and play this material with a great band, and that will be its own, you know, world and its own reward and its own, it's amazing to be able to just be with thousands of people in a room and dream the same dream for an hour and a half. Like that is its own thing I'm so looking forward to. But in terms of I'm just kind of looking to whatever's next for me, trying to find it.
I want to play you something. It's not from your new record. I want to play you this.
Okay.
Take a listen.
Any major dude with half a heart surely will tell you, my friend. Any minor world that breaks apart falls together again. When the demon is at your door, in the morning it won't be there no more. Any major dude will tell you.
That's Any Major Dude Will Tell You by Steely Dan. Annie Clark singing along.
Any major dude will tell you.
What do you love about this music?
I like the color palette. I like that it's sepia toned, and I like that it's really sophisticated, but you don't know. It just sounds so musical, and there's always I love the fact that there's guitar solos in it and great guitar solos. Like they're just like, and I've gone to see Steely Dan a number of times, and I went to go see them play Asia, and I went to see them play the Royal Scam when they do these things at the Beacon Theater, and the guitar solos are so good that you want them to play the exact guitar solo when you see them live. And that's not, a lot of musicians, a lot of bands, you want to see them stretch out and take it here, take it there. Those guitar solos are so iconic. I want to hear the guitar solo played note for note.
So tell me a little bit about channeling that era into this new record.
Um, I mean, first it starts again with the color palette. It's, I'm using Wurlitzers and clav and acoustic guitars, and the electric guitars on there really sound like electric guitars, just a more literal sound, I guess I'd say. Sitar, choral sitar guitar, and just these instruments that are like metal and wood and, air moving through a room going into a microphone, and just here's a performance, here's music, here's hopefully, sophisticated music and on a subterranean level, but you don't know it. It just sounds good, just sounds like music. That's what I was trying to do.
I think it sounds like a record, like at the most literal way, right? Like a record is literally a record of time
Yeah.
in which something was made,
Yeah. This was this moment. This is this performance. I couldn't replicate it. This just happened. This only happened once. Here it is, you know. That's just the scream or something, and Pay Your Way in Pain, me screaming I want to be loved, that wasn't like planned. That just sort of that just happened, and was guttural and caught me by surprise. I was just in my studio here alone, and I was like, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's present. It's not. It's being present in the moment that the music is being made.
Yeah.
Which gets harder, as there's more opportunities to not do that when you make music, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
How do you make a record that is obviously inspired by an earlier era? I've heard you talk a little bit about how this is sort of inspired a little bit, and we played Steely Dan, and we talked a little bit about the 70s and stuff like that. But when I listened to the record, Annie, I didn't feel like it was a nostalgic record.
Yeah, well, I think one thing is, you talk about what's going on now. And so that just from a lyrical standpoint, I mean, certainly there's just these universal stories, right? And in Joseph Campbell's sense, like, we live by the stories we tell ourselves and everything. But from a lyrical perspective, to actually kind of talk about the universal, but also the kind of slightly more now or topical, I guess. That's one way to not make it, completely a 70s. I'm not talking about Nixon, So.
Was that on your mind at all? Not Nixon, by the way. Was that on your? Well, yeah,
big influence.
Yeah. I saw that the Spiro Agnew song is one of my favorite tracks on the record.
Yes.
Was that? But like, was the idea of? I guess it's something I think a lot about, like being inspired by something that's older, but something that still feels very present. I do find that an interesting sort of paradox,
Yeah, I do know. Well, I mean, we're all kind of standing on the shoulders of the people from the past. And I feel with this particular music, again, like music made 1971 to 76 in downtown New York, Stevie Wonder, Sly and the Family Stone, Steely Dan. It's music that like I approached very humbly because I hold it with a lot of reverence, and it's music that I have very deeply in my heart and has been in my ears forever. But there's something in the feel and the complexity that I knew I had a lot to learn from it, and I also knew I was ready to learn whatever it was going to teach me. So I felt like I was able to kind of approach it in a nice way as like a supplicant. Everything about this record for me was definitely more a psychedelic experience, a bit just, hey, let's lean back and sit in the beat up leather armchair and talk about it, have a glass of good tequila and just like vibe, the dreaded V word.
It makes me think that I think a lot is made out of the personas that you put on for each record, or whether or not it's a persona. And I must have read 10 articles about that, What I don't, and we can talk about that if you want, but what I don't see enough, or I don't read enough about, is how you put on a different approach for every single record musically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where I put my effort. I mean, with the how I look for a record campaign, it is always like based in the music and sort of imagining the storytelling going further into the visual realm. But it always starts with the music and everything that I've everything I'm kind of dealing with in the music consciously and subconsciously. So I think about all my records, and I think about it might not be the most acceptable form of intimacy in terms of like, here's my heart and here it is, and I told I'm heartbroken or whatever it is, but I'm telling you I'm heartbroken. I'm just doing it in a slightly different way. And so it's always interesting to me, feels like I'm speaking a different language sometimes when people are too fixated on the persona or think that the music is not true or autobiographical in some way. I'm like, no, I've told you things I wouldn't tell my best friend. I'm not sure what you're expecting, but it's not going to stop what I do.
Yeah, I know.
What I do.
It's just that we're so hungry for narrative. You know what I mean? We're so hungry for story.
Yeah. Well, I wrote short stories and put them on a record.
No, what I mean is that we're so hungry for story that we'll create our own stories around someone's art, even if they're telling us something else.
Oh, of course. Yes. And which is the great joy of it too, is getting to project yourself onto, I did the same thing with all of my heroes for sure. You look at, you go, oh my God, that I'm seeing them believe in themselves for an hour and a half, as Kim Gordon puts it, like seeing a show is watching someone believe in themselves for an hour and a half.
I've never heard that before. That's beautiful.
It's great. I hope I'm quoting her correctly, but it's like, hell yeah, that's awesome. And I understand the sort of projection, and I absolutely do it to people who I'm big fans of, and music is armor, and it's identity, and it's all those things. So, yeah, I guess I'm just here to say,
here I am.
There's my heart. So
I love it. I love it because I love it. I love what you're saying there, because I can see like, well, here's what she's saying on this record. She's saying that the world is a computer and we are only computers within it. And I love the idea that within that record, you're going like, no, my heart is broken. Please, please listen to me.
I'm so sad.
No, she's not really sad. She's sad about AI. Like, no, she's just, she's just sad. You are, I did hear your personal story, obviously, in this record in a way that I had never thought of before, at least a story that I didn't know before. And I do want to talk about it as much as you want to. Let's just take a listen to a clip.
I signed autographs in the visitation room, waiting for you the last time inmate 502.
Sludgy, hey? Talk about feel. That is Daddy's Home by St. Vincent. Who's drumming?
That's Jack Antonoff.
No way!
Yeah.
Jack Antonoff, so I should point out for people who don't know, Jack Antonoff, who was in Fun and Bleachers and made all the Taylor Swift records and is working with you on this. He can drum like he's in Funkadelic?
Yeah, that's Jack.
Drumming.
I'm really excited for people to know that Jack can like throw down in that way, which I know he's a great musician. I've it's a great joy to work with him in so many ways, but he busted out that stuff and busted out bass. And I was just like, where have you been hiding this? I had no idea you were, had a little zigaboo or a little Bernard Purdy in you.
Yeah. Are you secretly 89 years old?
Yeah. And I was like, where did this come from? No, he's killing it.
I want to talk about the song a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about the song?
Sure. Well, it's a true story, that this one, about my father was in prison for almost 10 years, and I would go to visit him. And as my star was sort of, rising and I was getting more and more notoriety, it ended up that when I would go to visit, I would sign autographs in the visitation room, which is, and then you hear the background singers who are so great on this record, come in with Daddy's Home. And it's just like that to me, it makes me laugh in a cathartic way. Like it's a sleazy story. Let's be honest. It's not, it's inglorious in a lot of ways. But the irony and the humor in, going to see my father in prison, which is a heartbreaking, it's just completely soul crushing, and then I'm like signing autographs on the back of a Target receipt, just like, oh God, what is the world? What is the world? What a confluence of so many things. So that's the song Daddy's Home definitely talks about, like, going to see him and feeling like our roles had changed, like I kind of was walking in with the flashy clothes. I know I'm becoming just more of like a person, and the arc of the song is definitely like I kind of become daddy over the course of this experience. The tables turn, your responsibilities change and everything. So that's that song. And I called the record Daddy Song, partially in reference to that, but also again just tracing my own arc in terms of becoming daddy, and in terms of like just very comfortably taking up whatever space I'm in. Whatever space I take up, cool, glad about it.
What a thing to write about, Annie.
Well,
in a good way,
It is, yeah. I mean, it's it's tragic. I've written about the tragic part of it, but it's also redemptive. I mean, he's come out, and I have spent now more time with him in the past few weeks than I ever have, I think. And he's a complicated person, a funny person, a smart person. He's a lot of things, and I'm glad that we get to have a nice relationship, going forward. And there's redemption involved, so it's not certainly not all bad, but it is funny. I know I appreciate your Canadian sincerity, but it is also funny.
Canadian Sincerity is the name of my concept album. I hope you can appreciate that. It is. You're right. It is funny. I guess you're right. And maybe it's the Canadian sincerity in me, is that all I could think about was, did it ever feel like you couldn't fully have something? Like I think it's such a rare thing for something to work out artistically, So when you and for commerce to meet that success artistically too, So then you're not only is your art working out the way you want it to work out, but it's successful in a commercial way, which allows you to, buy eggs. Yeah. You're becoming famous. People are asking for your autograph and all that thing. It seems like you have the whole world. And then you also have this one thing where you have to go visit your father who's in jail during this, or in prison, I should say, in the most unlikely beautiful part of your life. I guess I was wondering whether it felt like you couldn't fully have something.
Well, it was like an anchor in my stomach. Always there was a kind of a threshold on joy, but also I wouldn't necessarily. I feel so incredibly lucky that, like, I guess I'm told that this is my 6th solo record and 7th if you count a collaboration with David Byrne, and that people still care, and in fact seems like more people care now than they did at the beginning, and that's a very lucky and a very strange trajectory. It's an uncommon trajectory, and I feel very grateful for that, but I wouldn't necessarily characterize the last the 10 years of my life while he was away as like wonderful.
Oh.
I mean, I was, again, it was tumultuous. It was parts wonderful, but part tumultuous, and a lot of, I'm sure there's a German word for it.
That's a great way to get out of saying a lot of things, this reminds me of, what, I'm sure there's a German word for it.
You can use it. I might use it again. When I look back at, that period of life, I'm really glad I am where I am now. I'm glad I got through it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say on it, and we don't have to talk about it anymore if you don't want, but the last thing I'll say on it is that I know that the story originally, you're telling the story about your father on this record, mm-hmm. and the story was sort of told for you in 2016 when I guess newspapers and the press, or the kind of tabloid press, mm-hmm. sort of, am I right about that? Like, kind of launched the story without you knowing about it.
Oh yeah, that was a very awkward period of time, because I'm really close with my family, and I have a big family, and I've always wanted to protect them. But I was dating someone incredibly famous in a tabloid way. And the Daily Mail was like coming to my sister's house in Dallas asking for dirt. Like, little did she know that I'm, we're thick as thieves, irony intended, and like we're thick as thieves. And there's no way like my sister's gonna sell me out or anything like that. But they came like looking, and when they couldn't find anybody in my crew and my family and friends to like sell me out, I did some digging. It was very strange.
What is that like?
I mean, it's invasive, and you feel and you feel personally guilty for being in a position to where your family is coming under scrutiny. I have a family to protect.
And they didn't put out any records,
Yeah, they didn't put out any records. This is not part of their and the difference in death is one thing, and there's sympathy but going to prison, that's not as immediately sympathetic to people.
Yeah.
It's one thing if your parent dies, of course people feel sympathetic, but the other thing is a little dodgier.
I want to play you a song. Take a listen to this.
I went to the store, I was feeling kinda hungry, but I didn't have the money and the shelves were all empty, so I went to the bank to check my checking. The man looked at my face, said we don't have a record. Oh no, you thought we had forgotten. The show is only getting started. The road is feeling like a pothole. Sit down, stand up, head down, hands up, and
That's Pay Your Way in Pain from St. Vincent's new album, Daddy's Home. Andy Clark is on the radio with me right now. Tell me how that song came together.
Well, I mean, this was the last one. Pay Your Way in Pain was really the last one that came together for the album, but I also knew that it was kind of a thesis in a lot of ways. I knew it was going to be the first song, and it was just the lyrics that took like kind of really getting there. And I was just kind of looking around and knowing how I felt in the world, and then looking kind of around America and going, geez, at every turn, people are just trying to live life. People are just trying to like have some dignity, have a job, have a purpose, be loved. And at every turn, it's like somebody's asking them to pay the piper. And it's like, we shouldn't be constantly having to choose between like survival and dignity. And so I was like, well, Pay Your Way in Pain. It's a blues for 2021. It's all the blues tropes. It's, you don't have any food, your baby left you, you've been kicked out of polite society, and at the end of the day, what? We just want to be loved. It shouldn't be that hard.
How did you feel after you wrote the lyrics?
I'm not sure how I felt. Oh, okay, I've got it. This says it. This says what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's how do I put this? It should be depressing, but I didn't find it. You know what I mean? Like I found it more of a stroll than a lumber, if you know what I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's some of the most romantic songs are some of the saddest, some of the most empowering songs are the angriest. It's like, you just kind of, put it all together in a way that feels authentic to you, as I know you understand.
What are you looking forward to now that things are starting to move along?
Oh gosh, I'm looking forward to playing this music. There's a particular feeling and I don't know if it'll happen this summer or anything, but there's a particular feeling that is being backstage at a summer festival. It smells a little like Budweiser. There's this feeling of like, getting ready, going on stage, seeing all those people in the open air, and then just like we're sweating and screaming together for an hour. And it's the best thing in the world. Anything could happen. It's live, and it's a connection and a high that there is no analog for in daily life. And it's the reason, among other things, but the main reason I do it is for the connection with humanity writ large. And I'm really looking forward to like that. The grass smell, the beer smell, the sun being at a certain angle, and then like the slow walk to stage before getting on.
I can tell you, even just as the audience member, I think that feeling is there too, that like as throughout this pandemic, you're looking at your phone at a different thing that the person next to you is looking at, and the different thing that, like the idea of being in a room and everybody like feeling the same, I know this is going to sound a little Grateful Dead-y, but just feeling the same vibration at the same time,
Yeah. Yes. And that vibration being amplified through just, every single body and every single brainwave. I know that I'm joining you in sounding very stonery, but it's magic. It really is magic. I don't know another word for it. I mean,
I found myself watching soccer chants on YouTube the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
What did it give you? Tell me what it...
My favorite thing is collective singing. Like I love hearing people sing collectively. And I watched like soccer, like people in arenas sing chants for like the Liverpool Football Club. I tell you what else I watched. I watched the audience, they were playing Bohemian Rhapsody while Green Day were getting ready to go on. And you just watched the entire, I think it was like Glastonbury or something like that level crowd sing Bohemian Rhapsody all together. It was like
which is amazing, because if you think of that song, I mean, that's not like a ole, ole, ole. That's like changes keys and changes, that's like a symphonic masterwork. And people, but it's so musical. It's so great. It's so iconic that everyone can sing along.
Have you ever had that happen to you? Like you're on stage and you just have the singing come back to you?
Yeah. One time is really jumping out at me. I was playing in Brazil a couple years ago, and it's the crowds in South America in general are just like wonderful. But I was playing at a little club before I went and played like the Lollapalooza, like the bigger festival thing. I was doing a little solo gig, and people were singing every single word to every single song. And this is, first language I imagine was Portuguese. This is probably their second or third language. They knew every single word. And at some point, I think I was singing the song New York, and the singing was, kind of louder than I could even hear myself. And it was so moving that I kind of teared up. I kind of was just like, I never in a million years thought I'd be like, playing for a bunch of people in Brazil who know every single word to this song. I mean, like, that's magic. That, again, probably overusing the word, but not really. It's magic. It's the best thing.
And maybe, I know we have to go, but like, to fully Phil Lesh this, which is you can use that. What you told me at the beginning was that within all these songs, when people talk about the artwork and people talk about your stage and people talk about the way you look and all that stuff, deep down, you're pouring your heart out. I am sad. I am in love. I am heartbroken. I am angry. And when everyone's singing that back to you, a very personal thing to you is shared collectively among strangers.
Yeah. Yes, and it's universal. It's universal, and I told my story, and then it gets weaved into their lives, and they add their story into it and on top of it, and just builds and builds and builds and grows until it's something completely, you might have been the genesis for part of it, but then it lives organically and kind of ephemerally, and I'll say it again, magically, in the lives of other people. And that's the best thing.
That's why you do it.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Annie Clark was my guest. You might know her as St. Vincent. St. Vincent's new album, Daddy's Home, is out everywhere tomorrow. Hey, thanks.
Hey, thanks a lot.